Aloha y'all, and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be doing another anti-haul. I know for a while there I'd been doing these pretty freaking regularly. Like as soon as I would have one, I'd have my list or whatever, I'd film it, I'd edit it, I'd have it uploaded, and then by the time I did that, I'd have a whole enough list of products to film another one. But it's in the new year, we're 2021 now, and we've kind of sort of slowed our roll just a little bit, or I'm not entirely sure if we'd actually slowed our roll or if I've just reached the point where there's just so much that I don't care about. There's not even any point about talking about it. So today's anti-haul is probably going to be, it's going to be like more of a practical anti-haul, less like, oh, I'm offended and disgusted by that, though. Don't worry, there will be plenty of that as well. But in 2021, your girl is trying to be living that life of less buying. So there is just a lot of, maybe I would want this, but there's really no need. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the theme of anti-hauls for an extended period of time for me, where there's just no need. These products being released hold no necessity for me. I mean, in all honesty, probably no new makeup releases hold any necessity for me, because if there's something I have too much of, it's definitely makeup. But I've just got a nice little list here of some of the things that I'm going to be anti-hauling for one reason or another, as I always say. If I anti-haul a product that you absolutely love, or I anti-haul a product that you plan on buying that is absolutely fan-fucking-fastic, you keep doing you, boo-boo. This is just me talking hyperbolically somewhat. It's like hyperbole based off of my actual thoughts and opinions. It's just stated in sort of a somewhat exaggerated manner. Had a couple people tell me that I've been a wee bit negative recently. I don't consider it negativity. I consider it the fact that I've reached the point in my makeup journey that I do not care. I'm not trying to get sponsors. I'm never going to get PR from nobody because I don't care. I love makeup, but at the same time, that love of makeup is what makes me look at these companies and be like, what are you do? Why you like this? Because if there is anything that has increased during my time on this platform, it is that brands have become exceedingly moronic. And as a somewhat more enlightened consumer, I kind of cut past the makeup BS to really kind of get to the heart of what I like and I enjoy as a consumer. So with that being said, let's just go on in and talk about these products. Okay, first thing off, I find it funny that a lot of these products I don't even have the names for. It's just like this brand something something. And the first thing is another Tartlet palette. I felt myself get all kinds of agita when I saw for holiday they had like a bunch of like little holiday ones where they're like, oh, it's just an extension and look at this cute little holiday, and I'm like, is that the best we can do? And y'all know Tarte is one of those brands. I mean, I feel I'm a little bit biased. As I was decluttering and sort of going through what I really loved and used, Tarte was a company that I came to the realization that I could get rid of basically everything that I have from them and be okay. I love their man-eater eyeliner. I love their Shape Tape. But when it comes to other like highlighter, blush, eyeshadow, just not really my thing. And so in seeing this, it's just another case of let's throw an extension onto something of ours that already exists. So we're going to create kind of a pinky, rosy, kind of modern renaissance-y take on the Tartlet palette. I already have the modern renaissance. I already have these tones. I've got the Natasha Denona Love palette. I got Lime Crime. I got everything I could possibly need out of this palette, and formulas I already have and formulas I already love. I don't think Tarte is really a company that is changing up the game. They're just kind of doing their own thing, which I can respect to a certain degree, but then when you're releasing things that are just kind of like, oh, all right, well, okay. I don't see a lot of staying power in a lot of the products that Tarte is continuously doing, and with them just doing like weird random collabs, random releases, it's just kind of all coming together in a big old jumble of mediocrity. But that is just me. Look at this, I'm just like, okay, All right, looks like another palette that's already been released by 5 other brands. Okay, if we're gonna talk about something that I don't want to buy, we might as well talk about something that I do want to buy. You know, this is a perfect example of why we are low buying this year. Anastasia Beverly Hills, which is a company that I've kind of lost a little bit of my I'm nowhere near as enamored with them as I used to be, but they decided they were going to come out with a single highlighter. I feel like it was kind of I noticed the packaging and it kind of looked a little bit like the Amrezi highlighter, but this is the iced out highlighter, which when I first saw it, I was like, I ain't gonna buy that shiz. Because it looked like it was like a silvery, whitey, kind of like Becca's Pearl, which I like for some things, but on a day-to-day basis, I prefer something that like melts into my skin rather than standing kind of out from it. But then I saw people using it and I saw people swatching it, and it's actually like a white champagne-y gold with like these really nice warm white gold reflex. I was like, that's pretty. I want that. I like highlighter. But the last thing your girl needs is another highlighter. I have so many highlighter singles, highlighter palettes. You know, I've been trying to be doing Project Pan, and I've been using them for like 3 months straight, like every other time I do my makeup, and I haven't done diddly in the way of panning that shiz. As much as I would love this highlighter, as much as I would like to get that kind of warm, beautiful, like soft white gold on my face, I'm pretty 99.99999% sure that I've got a highlighter to dupe this shiz. I only want it because it's a new, fancy, pretty, beautiful, gorgeous looking highlighter, but I don't need it, and so I'm not gonna buy it. Okay, then we're gonna talk about something that I wouldn't buy from any brand just because it's not my thing, but I would like to talk a little bit on the kind of the idiocy of the release and presentation of this. Kylie Cosmetics, which is a company, love the highlighters, love the blushes. I will give credit where credit is due, but when you have the audacity to release one product, one single lip oil, that's it, the lip oil, and then you want to be presenting it, I suppose this is the PR experience where it's in a giant lip-shaped box, which is a level of wasted space, wasted packaging, terrible to the environment that is worse than anything, dare I say, that Physicians Formula has ever done. And you all know that takes a lot, because if there's anything Physician Formula likes to do, it's destroy the environment with their wasteful packaging. I mean, I am so torn because I am someone who adores aesthetic. I mean, I love presentation. I love collecting things that I like. You know, I can see where this would be a thing. And then there's a part of me that's released the point where I'm just like, give me my products in as simple, whatever, you know, with skincare, I'm like, put it in a yogurt carton and sell it to me. I don't need no fancy bougie. And I'm also kind of torn on the whole idea of letting normal, regular, non-influencer people experience the PR experience. And I know I bought like the Milk Cosmetics whole like whatever, looking back on it, I shouldn't have done it. I'm taking that information and knowledge with me into this year. I just think it's a ploy. I mean, it's a lip oil. I'm sorry. If it changed your life, let me know. But I feel like taking one lip oil and giving it like a giant that's a little pretentious. That's a little bougie. That's a bit unwarranted. Is it really that good? Because let's face it, we all know that lip oil she's got, whether Colourpop already has them or they're going to release them, it's just one of those, but it's got Kylie brand on it, and it has her fancy giant lip-shaped packaging. That's the only it's one product, and the only thing, so much excessiveness for freaking lip oil. Just release it and keep it pushing. It's not gonna change the world. It's not the end all be all. We haven't reached the peak and pinnacle of makeup formulation. As I said, if we have, definitely let me know. But I feel like giving it like, you know, royalty packaging is just just a little bit premature before you see how that shit is gonna actually do on the market. Next one is something that I'm like not offended by. It's once again something that I'm like, yeah, no, not gonna buy. It's a thing. It looks kind of okay. Lime Crime, after all of my whatevering, I'm like, I would like y'all to focus on some palettes, and I meant like the Venus XL size. But instead they were like, we're gonna release the Glory and the Aura palettes, which are majority shimmer palettes that look very childish, look very immature, look very slightly on brand, but in a much less sophisticated way. The presentation with this looks like makeup I wouldn't spend a lot of money on. That is my personal preference. There are some colors in there that look real pretty, but I know for a fact I already have those colors, knowing that the majority of them are shimmers. It was just a lot of the Lime Crime releases have just been sort of there. You know, they're like, oh, we're releasing like this lip product, and we're releasing like this random fairy collection, and they just kind of put it out there, and there really isn't a level of consistency within the brand identity to make the product stand out. It looks like something any other brand could have done. You know, there isn't any emphasis on presentation, on packaging, because Lime Crime used to be like the aesthetic company. We had unicorn lipsticks, we had like the Polly Pockets, and then they're just kind of turning in sort of a two-faced way where they're like, all right, we got all these aesthetics, but we don't actually know what we're doing with them. And so they just drop these random themes on these random products, and they're like, here, we released something. Give us praise. Obviously, I can't attest to the quality of this shiz, but I ain't gonna be buying it. It does nothing for me. Might as well talk about a brand that I have given a lot of shiz to in a couple different videos. Dragon Beauty. Y'all know Nikita Dragon is not my end-all be-all on anything. And I've looked at her brand and what they've released. I've talked about her $30 5-pan eyeshadow palettes. And she was like, you know what my brand needs? My brand needs a birthday collection. We're pulling a Kylie Jenner here because I feel like, this is maybe a little bit shady, I feel like Nikita Dragon wishes she was that kind of makeup mogul that was kind of like Kylie Jenner with her makeup company. I'm so famous I can make a birthday collection about myself. But looking at this collection, I was seeing like nice, cool, cute, pink, whatever. I feel like the color theory for this palette was like a better, more curated version of the Melt Cosmetics Millennial Pinks palette. Because it's got the nice pink and the rosy tones and the black, and it just looks so much better curated than the Melt one that I was kind of disappointed, because the first eyeshadow palette and product from them that actually looks somewhat viable is a limited edition one. I'm like, okay, all right, you're overcharging for your eyeshadow. The egg-shaped pans don't make up in price point, and then you finally bring this thing to us that's actually nicely curated, represents your theme well, and it's limited edition. So seeing that, I mean, I did roll my eyes because I haven't been able to go through Facebook without seeing like Nikita Dragon's titties, which, like I said, I'm no prude. I do OnlyFans and all that shiz, but at the same time, I'm like, I want to look at the makeup, not the chest shot and the whatever and the sexy and the voguing and the yeah. You keep doing you, boo-boo, and do what you like and do what you love, but for me, it was like, oh, look, eyeshadow palette, kind of curated, limited edition. It's just kind of sad. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. Dragon Beauty is a company that has yet to find itself. It is yet to truly establish itself as a viable brand within the excessive amount of makeup companies that are already on the market. We'll talk about something else that on the surface of it, I look at it and I'm like, if I didn't already have a butt ton of eyeshadows, if I already didn't have a butt ton of eyeshadows in that exact color, I would probably buy you. Dominate Cosmetics, which is a brand that I have two palettes from. I have the latte palette and the berries and cream palette. Enjoy both of those very much. She decided to come out with the transition palette, which I really like the name of it because it's a palette that does have a nice breadth of color variation from light to really dark. So I enjoy that idea of creating a all matte neutral palette called the transition because it kind of lends itself, oh, it has a transition shade for a variety of skin tones. Y'all know that I have been kind of living for the neutral trend lately. A couple different eyeshadow palettes have come out last year that have really ignited my love for like brown, taupe, grays. You know what I mean. Talking about neutrals is just kind of funny. Because I'm like, yeah, something has come out that's made me really lust after brown. Case in point, Melt Cosmetics Rust Palette, Natasha Denona Glam Palette, Natasha Denona Bronze Palette. You know, I've been really vibing with the more earthy, grungy, neutral color stories. And y'all know your girl really likes an all matte palette. So while I would really enjoy trying this out, looking at it, I just feel from a standpoint of what I'm moving forward with and what I want to review on my channel, it's not viable for me. I've got those shades, I've got the matte shades, it's just not something, it's interesting. Had I, money, unlimited funds, money to burn, sure, I'd pick it up and I'd review it, but it just isn't stand out enough, not something that truly, really calls to me for me to warrant purchasing probably a $48 palette and reviewing it on my channel. I'm trying so hard in 2021 to not fall into the, well, I'll get a review out of it. It's okay to buy it if I'm going to get a review out of it. No. No. In my YouTube whateverness, I do not make enough per video to justify spending $50 on a palette just for a review. The video I make on it doesn't pay me back enough to kind of even out my losses. So if I don't absolutely love that shiz, if I'm not absolutely completely fallen in lust with it, it's gonna stay at the store. Then obviously, if we're gonna have an anti-haul, we've got to talk about that ever so controversial. Y'all, I think I just had a stroke. We have to talk about that ever so controversial brand, Colourpop, who is a company that I love and loathe passionately at the same time. And I loathe them because they keep coming out with the same things, and they keep coming out with things left and right. You cannot breathe anymore without seeing a new Colourpop release. It's not exciting anymore. I've said it a million times on my channel. First up, we've got the Natasha Denona Knockoff 5-pan palettes. Now, I admit, I am not someone who advocates for those 5-pan palettes of Natasha Denona. I've never tried one. I don't intend to. I know a lot of people really advocate for them. And then to see, like, Colourpop be all like, oh, look, we're dropping this new kind of eyeshadow thing. I feel like I could have expected more from Colourpop. I mean, at this point, they're releasing so much and they've done so much that at some point it was going to become a problem and they would have to take inspiration from other brands. That was sort of an inevitable outcome of their level of oversaturation. But with that being said, and I understand things aren't patented, it's duping it, it's making it less expensive. It's just, when it looks so clearly, it's like when Makeup Revolution took the Shade and Light palette and said, we're gonna call it Light and Shade. If it looks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, it's a duck. And just looking at these, I'm like, once again, it's just a random, stupid, needless Colourpop release. I'm like, okay, all right, I don't need a little 5-pan eyeshadow palette from Colourpop. I don't need a bunch of little 5-pan eyeshadow palettes from Colourpop. I'm not entirely offended at it. It is what it is, but it's just another kind of drop in the bucket of the giant amount of disappointing, underwhelming Colourpop releases. They aren't doing anything interesting for me. We've got the Colourpop Dusty Melrose. We've got the Wild Child, which is like a saturated version of the Dusty Melrose. You know, they're just, like I said, I don't even know why I continue to include them in here, because every time they release something that ends up on my anti-haul, I just end up saying the same stuff every single video, and it's like oversaturated, releasing too much, boring, using the same colors, putting shiz in a different aesthetic. You know, they do that sort of thing, and they keep doing it over and over and over again, and then they come out with something like Colourpop X Animal Crossing, which sells out in like 2 seconds. I am not, always see. I got a lot of products I love by them, but from a marketing standpoint, from a company standpoint, from how much they release to how they treat those releases that they know are going to get a lot of attention, I got issues with the company, you know? Because they know what they're doing. They're not dumb. They figured out how the market goes. I'm so sorry. They have come such a long way from being that cute little indie company that did Super Shock Shadows. You know, now they know what makes a buck. Now they know how to hype shiz up. And that's what they're doing. I don't hate the game. Kind of hating on the player just because they really get on my last nerve with all their shenanigans. I don't even try anymore. It was the Animal Crossing. There was the Hello Kitty, you know, collections that I probably would have liked to gotten a little something from. But when I see them doing, I get teased on Trend Mood with like, oh, look at this collection that Colourpop is coming out with. I just roll my eyes because I don't have the time or the patience to deal with the shiz of trying to get any of that. I don't look at it and think that's something I would like to try to get in my, I'm like, that's a headache I don't want to have to deal with because they aren't going to stock enough. We've seen it. They've done it. Every one of their super hyped up releases, people are, Colourpop plus, bleh. And then they stock enough for like 10 people. I am simply over it. Another thing from a brand that I don't think I own something by them. I think at some point, because I think one of y'all sent it to me, but this is from Suva Beauty. I don't even know what it's called. I simply wrote down Suva Beauty Alchemy palette because it's a little palette of 4 nifty, shifty, prismatic, transformative shades. And I just look at it and I'm like, okay, all right. We had the KVD Alchemy palette. We had the Urban Decay Distortion palette. I mean, this is something that we've seen done a multitude of times. I'm not saying that this palette isn't warranted. I'm not saying that Suva Beauty doesn't deserve to have their own version of a funky, transformative, whatever palette. I just know that for me and how I like to purchase things, I'm not wasting my money on a 4-pan transformative palette that's gonna sit with the rest of my eyeshadow, that by the time I think, oh, I could have used that fancy, nifty, transformative palette, my makeup will already have been done. By the time my mind will register that I have that in my collection, it'll be one of those things where I'm like, I should pull that out and incorporate that into a look. And it never happens. I know this because I purchased the Alchemy palette. I've decluttered it probably at least 3 times and then re-brought it into my collection thinking today, this year, this month, this week is when I'm gonna finally use it. And it's still sitting there kind of doing its thing, wasting away and getting closer to expiring. So I just look at it and I'm just like, okay. All right. I mean, if y'all want fancy, nifty, transformative whatevers, and you have a prismatic whatever highlighter in your collection, you don't need these shiz. You don't need a slightly shimmy shifting green, yellow, pink, or blue. I don't know a lot about Suva Beauty, so I'm not saying anything about the quality, but just looking kind of at the product on a base level, I'm like, it's been done. It's here. We're just kind of going around in circles. I mean, maybe we do need something in place of the KVD Alchemy palette because I feel like one of the things that KVD is trying to do right now is liquidate all of its Kat Von D assets while still desperately trying to hold on to and maintain some level of rebranding. They ain't doing the best. They ain't got it right yet. But I know the Alchemy palette is one of those things that have been on sale for some time. So with that potentially leaving the market, maybe we do need something to come in its place. And maybe that'll be the Suva Beauty version of the Alchemy palette. I certainly don't know. Next, let's talk about something that I'm actually really proud about because I anti-hauled this shiz before filming this video, and I have maintained my anti-haul, even though there was a part of me that was like, you kind of need to get that, you kind of need to review it. But I was able to take hold of my senses, pull myself in, and realize that it would be a very redundant item within my collection. And that is Melrose Cosmetics coming out with a palette version of their Blueprint stack, which the only reason I own the Blueprint stack, I talked about in the products I wish I had bought, and one of y'all sent it to me. And looking at the stack versus the palette, oh, there isn't a lot of anything new added to the palette. So if you have the stack, I mean, the palette, like there wasn't, it's like, okay, all right, they took the stack and they turned it into a palette. They didn't really expound on it. They didn't make it any different or any more significant. It was just like, okay, it's kind of a neutrally blue tone. It's like neutrals with a pop of blue, but a lot of blue. Neutrals with several pops of blue, which I really enjoy the stack. I reach for those blue shimmers a lot of times when I'm doing a blue look. But I feel like a lot of the palettes that they've sort of expounded on, we've had the Rust one, we've had the She's in Parties, you know, all of those palettes that they've decided to take the theme of and expound on it, were done in a superior way to this one because I understand they can't keep releasing the same type of palettes over and over again, but I feel like when you are doing these extension palettes of stacks that already exist, it behooves you to maybe do them in a little bit larger palette to actually give them the ability to expound on it rather than just taking the stack, putting it into palette form, and adding a shade. Because for those who already own the stacks, it's absolutely pointless. Unless you're going in and being like, well, having it in a palette form is a lot easier, which it is. The stacks are extremely inconvenient and just difficult and annoying to work with. Revolutionary at the time, but I feel like now that they're doing all of these palettes, I'm like, take it a little, give us a little bit more. Don't just give us the little piddly whatever. Really give us the depth and breadth that we deserve. I love the She's in Parties palette. I just wish that it had been a little bit bigger. Because if there's something I like, is I enjoy a nice level of gradation. I am very simple when it comes to my makeup. All right, just have the light and then the dark and then the deepest. You know, I am a simple makeup person. So I am very thankful to whoever sent me the Blueprint stack because I have that. I didn't need to buy this. Literally, there just wasn't enough about it to make it any kind of different aside from the fact that it's in a palette form instead of a stack. It's like you're not getting anything more by purchasing this. Yeah, maybe there's a shade or two extra, but the shades they added didn't actually give anything more or exciting to the stack that already existed. It's just like, come on, Melt, pull it together. Because Melt is typically so good at creating really nice stories and color themes. And then they were just like, all right, just take these stacks, take the eyeshadows, put them into rectangular plans and put it into this. And like, okay, that's the exciting part of it. Slap some pretty shiny packaging on it and call it a day. I wanted to get it. A part of me was like, you need to buy this shiz and you need to review it because it's a Melrose Cosmetics palette. And I'm like, but you kind of don't. That palette would literally give me nothing more than I already have. So I just told myself I will be happy with my stack. I will stay with that. I don't know whether this palette's going to be limited edition or not, but I will admit that I am very proud of myself for coming together, having some logic to my sort of deciding, because I feel like that palette is kind of one of the epitomes of buy it because you'll get a review out of it, even though it won't actually give you anything more than you already have, and you basically already have that palette. So I guess we're going into 2021 with a little bit of a sturdy head on my shoulders. But that is all I have to talk about for you all today. I am glad that it feels like the companies, I don't know how long it's gonna last, but they've been kind of like slowing down just a little bit. Like I said, I don't know if they're slowing down or I've just reached the point where I have no F's to give. I just couldn't care less. It's taken a lot more to excite me about a makeup release than it used to, because a company used to drop a highlighter and I'd be like, that is it. Whereas now I need something that's going to give me more value, more interest, more bang. Obviously, I would love to hear what you all have to say about these products. If you love them, you hate them, there's something that I should maybe rethink on, as well as something that you are anti-hauling for one reason or another. But thank you guys so much for watching. I love you, and as always, keep it real. Mwah!